Hello, in this video we're going to be adding the 2, 4, and 6 back into the Dorian tone center that's been practiced previously. So hopefully everybody's done the work up to this point where you've learned to solo with just the A minor tone center up and down the neck. That's important. Before we get into that, I've got a little rant that I would like to go on, and it's about learning how to play a scale over one specific chord, not multiple chords. I see these videos where these people are demonstrating scales, and I listen to it, and then you hear that they're playing over multiple chords. Well, I've got news for you. If you're playing over multiple chords, you're playing multiple scales, whether you realize it or not. For example, I'll keep this in the key of G somewhat relative to what we're doing now. If I was to play a progression, if I said I was going to play the Dorian scale over A minor to D or D7, all right, so A minor 7, D7, and if I said I was going to play the Dorian scale over that, again, I got news for you. You're only playing the Dorian scale when the A minor chord is being played. Once it changes to D7, you're playing the D Mixolydian scale, again, whether you know it or not. And the reason that it works, meaning that you could play and think in your head just A Dorian all the way through that, the reason you can is because A Dorian and D Mixolydian are in the same key and they share the same notes, but they are not the same scale. So if you don't realize that, you're going to be limited in your solo options. There's a lot more that you can do when you solo over a progression if you understand each and every chord in the progression. If you just think of A Dorian in our example here as you solo over those two chords, again, it's going to be somewhat limited in sound compared to if you had practiced already the A Dorian scale and the D Mixolydian scale, practice that separately, and then come back to play over the progression. You'll find that you have far more ideas to choose from. All right, so that's important. So when you initially learn a scale, it should definitely be only over one chord. The other thing is that at this stage of the game, we don't want to be adding what are called the color intervals. That you can also call these the embellishments or extensions of a scale. They're simply the even numbered intervals out of the scale that we're going to be adding into it with our solo today. But when you play over a chord, you shouldn't have either the 2 or the 4 or the 6 in the chord. If you do, it's going to have a little bit different quality to it when you solo over it. We're trying to train your ears here to hear the difference between tone center intervals and color intervals, and that is best done by having just tone center intervals in your chord when you solo. That is important, okay? First, I want to talk about this. I'm going to hold up this diagram. Again, in the book, this is done a little bit nicer. Just the intervals, natural intervals there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we know that we can call 8 the same thing as 1. I'm going to ask you to keep counting, meaning keep counting through the same intervals again with 8 and continue on. So if I can call 8, 1, then I can call this 1 over here 8 also. And if I keep counting through the scale, I'm going to get 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So the point being, what I'm interested in right now is the 2, 4, and 6. So I can call the 2 a 9, I can call the 4 an 11, and I can call the 6 a 13. So I'm just going to write this down now. Hold this back up. All right, so 2 can also be called 9, 4 can be called 11, 4 can also be called suspended. All right, so there's 3 names for that. You can call it a 4, you can call it 11, or you can call it suspended, which is usually abbreviated SUS, sus. And 6 is the same as 13. Those are things you need to know. Okay, so sometimes you're going to hear me refer to these color intervals, the 2, 4, or 6, by those other numbers. So make sure you know what they are. All right, first thing we're going to do is learn the interval shapes. Just like we learned the interval shapes for the tone center intervals, we're going to do the same thing with the color. So in the 3-string pattern, if I look for the 2 or the 9, right, 3-string pattern being here, it's very simple. It's just up a whole step from your root. Okay, but go through every root and put in your 2. And make sure you're trying to memorize what that looks like. Again, it's pretty simple. In the 4-string pattern, that same interval can look like this. So from the root, it's on the adjacent string down 3 frets. 1, 2, 3. So go through that and do that on all your roots. Don't forget about the tuning adjustment. So get that up and down the neck. Okay, the next thing is 4. Adding the interval, it's our learning the interval shape for the 4. Very simple. Here's your root, straight across. So your guitar is tuned in fourths for the most part. Remember that? Okay, so 4th is straight across no matter where you are. Don't forget about the tuning though. So your 4th is there. Go through all of your 4ths, trying to memorize what that looks like. And then you got to come back and look at your 6s. From your root, the 6 is going to be, it skips a string and goes down 1 fret. So whether you're playing in the 3-string pattern or the 4-string, you're going to get the same shape. So the 4s and 6s look the same regardless of the pattern that you're playing in. Okay, but go through that, get that up and down the neck. Take as much time as you need to do that. Another thing I should mention here is when you're looking for a single note up and down the neck, you can use that root position diagram that we've talked about earlier for finding your A roots, right? So we learn these root positions to find all of your A's. Well, if I want to find all of my B's, I simply move all of these A's up a whole step. So all of my B's, any note you're looking for can be used using these same root position shapes. So all of my B's, very simply, can be found the same way. So when I'm looking for example, a 9, it's a B note. So if I'm down here and I'm looking for where my 9s are, my 2s in this position, it's very simple. Here are my 2 B notes. Those are my 2 9s. Here are my 3 9s in this next position, so on and so forth all the way through. So if you're looking for your 4s, well, 4 is a D note in this case. Right? Just doing those root positions on a D, and I can find all of my 4s. Same thing with a 6. 6 is an F sharp. Here are all of my 6s for the Dorian scale. Right? Very easy way to do that. Just another way that you can think about looking for these intervals. Okay. So when you get those shapes together, the next thing you're going to do is one at a time solo with just the tone center and the 2 up and down the neck. And I'll demonstrate these for you in a minute. And you get that so that you're comfortable with it. Now you'll probably make a bunch of mistakes as you do this. But what that shows you when you make mistakes, you'll probably play notes that you don't mean to play. So if we're playing the full tone center and adding the 2, that means we're playing a total of 5 notes, which means there are 2 notes that we're trying to avoid. We're trying to avoid the color 4 and 6, those 2 colors. You will probably inadvertently add those notes in by mistake. It takes some training, a little bit of practice, to play only exactly what you're trying to play. So it's actually a very good exercise, not in just hearing these intervals, but in playing exactly what you intend to play and nothing else. So you will make some mistakes as you go through this. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate these. Work on these one at a time. Get all of your 2s with your recording up and down the neck. Spend some time with that. Do your 4s all up and down the neck. Spend some time with that. And then do the 6s and spend time with that up and down the neck. After you do that, you can spend time just mixing all of that stuff together. But you'll have a much better place to come from ear-wise when you're doing that because you've practiced listening to these intervals. So you should start to hear at that point the scale in a little bit different way. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate some of these things just quickly. I'm not going to go up and down the neck with everything, but I'll play the 2s, then the 4s, and then the 6s only. All right, each done by itself with the tone center. So here are the 2s. Alright, so that's the 2. Get that up and down the neck. The 4s. Now adding the 4 to this is really just going to be a minor pentatonic scale. We'll get into that more in the next video. Right now it's tone center, add the 4 in. The other thing I want to mention here is when you practice adding these colors in, you should do it scalarly. Let me go back to the 9s for a second. Scalar just means going up and down the neck in order. Pretty simple. The other way you want to listen to this is emphasizing the color that you're putting in. So obviously I was playing the 2 a lot more often then. So scalarly and then emphasizing the color. Those are 2 good ways to practice this. You can do it any way you would like. I'm just suggesting a couple ways that might be good. Alright, back to the 4s. Okay, do that up and down. 6s. Alright, so get each one of those up and down the neck, mix them together later on. In the next video, we're going to spend some time talking about the minor pentatonic scales in the key. Alright, see you next time.